First of all, I must admit that the plan of Victoria was brilliant. And the writers did a great job in making us doubt Emily in these last episodes. Because at first watch I caught myself thinking if Emily could have killed her really, and they only made us believe Victoria did it herself. Of course, because it was Emily's final ruse to fool the authorities and the audience as well. Emily did the same in season 1 when she torched Mason's house and framed Amanda for it. Only to tell her Victoria had framed her to get rid of Amanda, which she hates and despises. Surely no coincidence that Victoria used this zipper, cause Mason must have choreographed this in revenge for his burned down house and only manuscript of his biography. But I still get mad when I think about how everyone else besides Nolan and David of course are doubting Emily. I mean, yeah, she is the first suspect, but David had enough reasons to kill Victoria as well. And if you think about the people she destroyed, namely the last one with this imposter Natalie Waters, I doubt that Emily is the only suspect on the list. About Nolan and Tony. As they rushed into the happy end for Emily and Jack, they are showing us this relationship really in fast motion. Here they are happy as they can be and almost like a newlywed couple, only to be split in the next scene. It is so sad cause we have seen Nolan literally never happier. Even with Patrick, who seemed to be his longest relationship besides his friendship to Emily of course, he never seemed that kind of happy. As much as I felt for Nolan when he and Tony went separate ways, I really hoped they would let us see him and Louise getting closer again. And I am still wondering why they had to split these two up when they are not giving us a reconciliation scene with Louise. What was this for? I mean, should Nolan be punished while Emily is rewarded with her childhood love? Why cannot Nolan have his happy end? For God's sake, with Tony and not Louise. But letting him end up alone again was really hard to watch. And I still think that Tony's explanation was a bad excuse to get rid of him. I mean, he was not that serious with Nolan. They were not living under the same roof. So why the hell should they not see each other? I mean, the social service cannot expect him as a single dad to avoid every contact to potential partners. About Victoria's suicide note. I must admit that even at first watch I always thought something was wrong here. Not only because Victoria faked her death once at the end of season 1. It felt so anticlimactic and very untypical for her not to watch how Emily would suffer. And since we have 3 episodes left, there had to be more to the story. So I was not wondering but when Victoria would surface again. About the beach house. I was glad that the explosion gave Emily the opportunity to move back into the beach house. It certainly is big enough for her and her father, and I was already wondering after he broke up with Victoria why she did not move in with him again. I mean, they could surely cherish some old memories. But I am wondering if David did some changes, cause it looks not quite the same as when Emily lived there. I mean, it has still this female and maritime vibe. Which is a bit strange given the fact that David now lives there. And Victoria may be also not so keen about the interior. Especially because it was Emily's taste. Yet I did never see this giant flat screen. And I cannot imagine Emily sitting in her beach house and after plotting all her revenge stuff turning on the TV. But maybe I am wrong and it was there all the time, hidden in that little spot we never saw before. About Ben investigating Victoria's murder. I know they tend to do that in fiction, but it always bothered me that he who was involved with the main suspect and recently broke up with her is in charge of this investigation. Like Jack later says, isn't that a huge conflict of interests? I mean, he could hold a grudge against Emily and fake evidence in order to let her stay the prime suspect, so no one would investigate in another direction. In fact, I was a little suspicious of him because Victoria tried to collude with him once, so maybe she turned to him again. since Mason's speech was undercut with pictures not only of Louise and Margaux but with Ben, too. About Jack and Stevie in LA. This was clearly just to make us jealous. I mean, look at the pool and all these rich colors. Even the towel bursts into bright colors. Not to forget Jack being shirtless again. If you are into trained bodies, Nick Wexler is not disappointing you. Though for me he looks a bit like Hulk. About Nolan's reaction to Victoria's death. This was just hilarious. Though not very inventive. But I must admit, as a German viewer, I did not get the joke right away. So for me it was not that obvious as for American viewers, I am sure. I still wonder why both are not more suspicious. Especially with Mason coming back exactly at the time of the explosion. Though Emily does not believe in coincidence. Maybe another proof that she is not that cautious and ahead of everything as she used to be when she was revenging. About the scenes with Mason. I still love the resolution of this in the next episode. It was so obvious how he wiped his nose and brandished with his handkerchief. I always thought something was not right here. But I never would have guessed that he was planting evidence. I just thought he wanted to distract Emily to take something. And I like that his quotes are quick and on point. There are still many unanswered questions about his disappearance at the end of this episode. Like, was it only an empty threat that he had written a book about Emily and all her lies? And why could Emily not find him? Where did he go? I mean, he is the only one of her targets who got himself free. About Jack doubting Emily but still going back. He is not very persistent when it comes to Emily. Like Daniel, he is always coming back to her. But I was very deceived of him that he had to ask if Emily was responsible. Like I said, she is for everyone the prime suspect. Even though Victoria and the Graysons had many enemies. I mean, like he and Stevie reminiscent, Victoria destroyed many lives. Emily, David, Jack and Stevie are sure as hell not the only ones who would like to see her dead. Not to forget the bad publicity for her after Emily's TV interview. Why they are so sure that not any one of Emily's and David's fans wanted to do them a favor by burning Grayson Manor and Victoria in it. I myself thought that maybe David did it and was too afraid to admit it to Emily. I mean, how he got rid of the belladonna and tried to hide it before Emily was really suspicious. About Margaux and Louise. I really love Margaux's new look with the light waves in her hair, the dark lipstick and the floral patterns on her two-tone dress. She looks a bit dangerous and it adds to this dark vibe around her. What I hate in her scenes with Louise, especially in retrospect, is that she knows all the time about Victoria and her plan. But she did not tell anything to Louise and lets her suffer. I mean, you can see that she has a hard time accepting Victoria is gone and that she maybe has been the victim of a crime. It was not fair putting her, who is already that unsteady, under this roller coaster of emotions. Victoria and Margaux are really cruel to her and only use her to their advantage. About Emily's really ridiculous alibi. I still cannot decide if this was just dumb or genius what the writers are pulling up here. Of course, Mason being Emily's alibi was Victoria's, and his plan all along, so again I cannot understand why Emily is still not suspicious. Mason just walked into her at the time Victoria lit up Grayson Manor. Think about it, if she had reached Jack in time, even if he had still gone on the plane or rejected her, he could have been at least her alibi. It is strange the roles are really reversed here, cause Emily makes it almost too easy to frame her. Though I am confident that most of the plan was Mason's idea, cause he had enough time to analyze Emily's revenge tactics, while Victoria surely not bothered to look deeper into details. About Emily running into Jack. This was convenient again. By the way, I like her look here. She looks a bit like a siren with her red lipstick and the curls, but yet fragile with the pastel colors and the floral patterned blouse. Though I use these scenes very often, I am not a big fan of the dialogue. It just appears so contrived. On paper their little joke may looked good. And that he calls her Amanda for the first time only to say goodbye to her was not that promising either. About David's cancer. This was maybe the most sad side plot of this crammed finale. That David first gets to know he has cancer and is afraid to tell Emily. Here she finally finds out by herself, but he still assures her that they found it early and there is no need to worry. While an episode later he gets this terrible seizure and has to admit that he will die within a year or so. And to know that Emily might not have the chance to say goodbye, because Victoria put her in prison, was really too bad for me. 'Cause again this hit home. My father died on a doctor's appointment. So both me and my mother did not get the chance to say goodbye. She drove him to the doctor in the morning and later that day police came to tell us he is dead. I can remember that I laughed because I truly thought this was some kind of sick joke like in this TV show in which they fool people. About Emily's namesake. It is funny that they had to move to the final episodes to finally call her by her right name. I think it is only David who calls her Amanda all the time. Must be due to the fact that James Tupper is the only actor who did not have a scene with Emily Van Camp until season 4. He was only appearing in flashbacks and therefore mostly played with Emily Alyn Lind and her sister. Jack just called her Amanda for the first time in this episode. And Nolan still calls her Ems, though this abbreviation could is fitting for both names. Am I right, while Amanda? Victoria only called her Amanda in the first episode and in this video message. Now about Amanda. The famous video message. Fitting that they finally resort to this cause. They always advertised the show as a mixture of Pretty Little Liars and Gossip Girl. So this just comes full circle. Though I still think that Victoria gave us a little hint that she might not be dead with her question who would be keeping score at their revenge game. Interesting enough that she calls this thing game and announcing herself as the winner. And again the timing is just too good with the police arriving just when the video was erased. If they had come earlier they could have seen at what Emily is watching and maybe even heard Victoria's confession. Anyway, I still think it is highly inappropriate that Ben gets to arrest his ex-girlfriend and Jack's look seems to say the same. Though I was happy that this showed he was back in the game. I think it would have had more emotional impact if David was coming home seeing his daughter being arrested. 'Cause she had a date with both. At the police station she told Jack to come by to talk things through, which he denied. And later David made the offer to have a cozy night with a movie. Which, like I said, sounds so untypical for Emily. Anyway, they could have even made both guys watch Emily being arrested and bring in some flashbacks. Like when David was arrested and had to watch how they carried little Amanda away. Or when Jack said goodbye to her and took Sammy in his care. As much as I hate to say it, I like that the last shot was Emily and Jack looking at each other. Like I said multiple times, we waited long for this pairing to finally happen. And I wished they had gave us more as this little scenes in the finale.